It's not common. Women were considered to be very of a lower status in many cultures and many societies. It was very common. So it should have been the norm, and it should stay the norm, but it hasn't.
Am I right in thinking, you've got a very small intelligence, forgive me, but the New Testament changed things, okay? Which broadened the way we look at life and the way we have evolved as Christians, if you like, in this Christian country, okay? Now, if the Quran doesn't want to kind of move from its where it was back then, how on earth are the two going to ever catch up?
I'm reading about it. So, about enlightenment in Islam. I'm reading about like how when the French went to Egypt, and like Muhammad Ali was an Egyptian that was like quite liberal and forward thinking. Right, he come under a lot of pressure in Egypt, but managed to find ways to bring it forward. But there are a lot of I'm reading about Islamic enlightenment at the minute. It's fascinating.
Okay, so just to answer your point,
please.
Islam has always been progressive. It doesn't need reformation. That's a statement that I can make here. And let me tell you why I say this. Let me tell you why I say this. No. Islam has always been flexible and always been progressive. It's never been rigid like this. In Islam, we have a concept called ijtihad, where you constantly make and amend your laws and regulations based on the framework. Because there's a solid framework which is fixed. So in Islam, you have a hudud, a parameter. You don't go beyond this parameter. You stay within this parameter. But within the parameter, there are certain laws and regulations or principles which are unmovable. You can't change. But the others are very, very flexible. To give you an example, punishment laws. In Islam, there are only few handful of crimes that requires very strict, specific punishment. The vast majority of, I don't put 90% or 99%. If I want to say vast majority of punishments to crimes are discretionary. They will be determined by the judge based on the circumstantial evidence and so on and so forth. So it is not rigid as such, but there are certain things which has been considered from day one is unmovable, they are fixed. Because these things are grievous to the society and detriment to the society. For example, one of the crime is highway robbery. You know what highway robbery is? We don't see that in these terms now. Someone coming now, for example, you see the police officer over there in their van. Now you have people coming in and then with their guns start shooting you left, right and center, shooting at the police and walking like this, with like this. With their pride and arrogance and stubbornness and this feeling that no one's going to do anything. And they walk away and no one does anything about it. If this were to happen, the society, people in a society will be living in fear. You would not be happy and content and secure. These kind of crimes, if let loose in a society, the society will crumble. People will not be happy. Remember, we want people to be happy in society. So in Islam, my friend, just to wrap up, in Islam considers the health of the individual as well as the society very important.
Okay,
to have a healthy society, crimes like this is put in check by severe punishment so that people don't live in fear.
Well, going backtracking just a little bit, okay? I live in Tower Hamlets, okay, near Brick Lane. I've never been able to date a Bengali girl, Indian, Pakistani girl. They never come out from their. This is my wife. I have been married for many, many years.
You want to date even after you're married?
I'm sorry? No. I'm just saying, generally speaking, why do?
Clarify your question.
No.
While you're married to your wife, you want to date a Bengali or Indian Pakistani girl?
No.
I misunderstood.
You totally misunderstood.
Explain,
what
please.
What I'm saying is, I have a son who's 30 years old. Yeah. Who also lives in Tower Hamlets. Great-looking guy. He's got his own businesses. He's doing really well. Why is it the Bengali girls, Pakistani girls? Don't want to know.
Sure, I'll tell you. It's easy.
Why?
Because
why shouldn't
when you date,
girlfriend, Jamaican.
I'll tell you why. Because of the different outlook in the way we live.
Okay.
In Islam, we don't have a concept of girlfriend and boyfriends. You have in your society because that's how your society is. We don't have boyfriend girlfriend in which then they have extramarital sex and have babies or without babies, nothing. These kind of relationship, Islam doesn't sanction or approve. So a Bengali girl or a Pakistani girl or an Indian girl, perhaps either they are Muslim in the majority, or maybe they're Asian, in the sense that there may be Hindu or a Sikh, whatever the religion. And all of this religion, Islam, Hinduism, and Sikhism doesn't, one second, it doesn't allow Islam, Hinduism, or Sikhism, to the point, does not allow this kind of.
Why? How are you going to?
If you allow me, then I will tell you. If you allow me, right? If you allow me. If you allow me. Right. So, when you want to date someone, look.
We're married too long.
Yeah. So, when you want to date someone,
well, that date in order to progress and to marry and to propagate and have children like
so
the
this
black
is
people do with the white
this
people,
is
Greeks and with the what are you?
Right.
Jewish.
So basically, what it is, you have a relationship first before you get married. In Islam or in other religions that I've mentioned, it's not like this. Your relationship is sacred. Your relationship should be pure and relation based on faithfulness. That means this kind of premarital relationship is not going to be very healthy later on. My friend, trying to answer your question, right? Right. It is not going to be healthy. In this society, what happens? Because of this society, the way people know each other, right? When you're 18, you're kicked out of your house, literally, from your parents' house. You have to look, have your own house and your own living.
I disagree because I never kicked my children out at 18.
I'm just saying, it seems like the norm, right? It seems like the norm. Where,
which way you look at it from.
Yeah. So, what they're promoted here is like, you choose your own partner. And people, in trying to choose their partner, they try to have relationship with many people. And they don't find the right match. So by that time already, they have slept with so many people. Maybe not because they're choosing a partner, because of their need of the body. They go and fulfill this need on Friday and Saturday nights because that's how it is. Whole week they live like a slave under this economic slavery machine, and then they want to just let loose something and then have some enjoyment, and they do that. This is not how in Islam, for example. Let me talk to you about Islam. How families are started. Now, you start a family based on a solid foundation in which you are pure and faithful. You are muhsanat. You are pure in the sense of, you are not already have someone relationship with so many other men or women.
So you're condoning...
I am not condoning anything. I am saying in Islam, in Islam, we have a total different outlook of what is a healthy family. Your notion of a healthy family is different.
I don't think it's that different. Like two people that love each other and having children is quite like universal. I don't think it's completely different. So it's just a different approach to it. And also I think any culture when it's effectively a foreign land. When English people go to Spain, they only hang around with other English people, don't they?
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's just what people do.
Explain this phenomena. People are married, not yourself, beg your pardon. People are married. No. My question that follows. When people are married and they still want to have a relationship with other people.
No, why? No, that's disgusting.
Good question. Why?
I'm sure Muslim men do that as well.
Look,
Sure
I didn't say
Muslim
this is
women do that
specific
as
to
well.
Western men or women.
And
Why do they do that?
when this thing overtakes this thing.
Right. So in Islam, it's considered to be a grievous crime. But in a Western context, it's not a crime at all, is it?
But it happens in Islam.
Wait, sorry. We're not questioning about whether it happens or not. We have Muslims who do very bad things. Some Muslims, right? So my question is, let's discuss one thing at a time. In Western context, having extramarital relationship where you're married, it is not a criminal offense, is it?
No. Please,
That's why people try to do it, because it is not a crime in that sense, they're going to get punished.
Okay,
but in Islam, it is also a criminal offense in which they know that, you have already been provided for to fulfill your needs in a marital relationship. You don't need to go beyond that.
Fair enough.
And if you do need to, you can get married to another person.
Please, one more thing. Why is it? I work as a counsellor for a very, very big charity, okay? And we approach the mosques because the suicide rate with young Muslim men is very high. You speak to the imam, what they call him, imam, forgive me. No, we don't have that in our culture. You do.
Okay. So,
and I know this.
Elaborate a bit more. You're talking about now.
Why do you not accept?
Wait a second. I haven't denied anything. I haven't accepted anything. I've just heard yourself saying in Tower Hamlets, there are a lot of Muslim men trying to commit suicide.
Yes.
Maybe it is absolutely true. The question is, let's look at those individuals. Have you studied those individuals?
Yes. In
Right.
some
Tell
cases,
me,
my
are they very religious or not so religious?
They are very religious. Hence why
Wait.
the suicide
One
rate is
second.
so
One
high,
second.
because
One
they
second.
cannot adhere to it.
Slow down. So give me an example of someone that you know personally. This person is very religious and wants to commit suicide. Because if someone was religious, they would have known from day naught, suicide is totally unacceptable.
Okay. All right, hold on, son. I once said to my son, why are you throwing this food away?
Why are you?
Throwing this food away.
Food away.
There are all these starving people in the world. You know, he said to me, name me one of them. How can I name you the one who's being sexually abused by his mum and dad that can't come forward because of the shame of their religion and their faith? I'm a counsellor. I work with
I lost you there.
No,
You
most people do.
made a statement.
Yeah,
There
I'm
are a
very
lot
clear
of
about it.
Muslim men, brother, lot of Muslim men making claims, right? Were this claim made anonymously?
They don't want to come forward,
Please.
unfortunately.
When you are working in your capacity in the council,
Yeah.
you've heard this.
Yeah.
How did you verify those
We
things?
verify by the deaths that are being buried under the Tower Hamlet.
Good.
or
So
under-
you got evidence from youth who have been hanged or they have been committing
taken their
right.
lives,
And then tell me, what did you do to establish they were religious or irreligious?
No, that's a very, that's a...
You made that you made the connection.
Let me find the words, my brother.
Sorry.
Let me find the words, you throw me. But when we're not allowed to go in and speak to the imam, when he dismisses it totally,
We're not talking about imams.
yeah, I am.
But we're talking about the
And
link.
then
Look,
people,
the
because they don't want
correlation
to
that
come
you've
out.
made: Muslim boys in Tower Hamlets committing suicide because you've seen the dead bodies, and you made the link. They are very religious.
Yes.
Now, what evidence do you have to make that link? What evidence did you have to make that link?
Family that come to us for counselling.
So those
I'm not sure that
boys.
was specifically made either. He said that there was an issue within the Muslim community of Tower Hamlets of suicide not being addressed properly.
Shall I tell you the problem in Tower Hamlets? Okay, let me tell you what I know of Tower Hamlets. There are a lot of young boys into drug addiction, severe drug addiction. Right. What does Islam say about taking illicit drugs? Forbidden.
Yeah, but every
So,
culture and law's got that.
excuse me, please. I want to show to you that your correlation, that this is being Islam as a problem, is totally groundless,
No, but that's
totally
not the point.
baseless.
But that's not the point. Yeah, but you're countering a point that wasn't made.
Wait. That's what I was trying to establish.
You're countering a point that wasn't made, though, mate.
Remember he said,
associating Islam
okay,
with the problem.
remember he said, Muslim boys, you should have said boys. Why did he bring Muslim into this?
Boris Johnson should have said this.
No.
Ayatollah should have said this.
I find
Jesus
it,
should have
excuse
said
me,
this.
I find
Muhammad
it
should have said this.
very unfair
We
to
can't
link,
find the words.
look, Muslim bus driver didn't allow someone to get into the bus.
God says, Allah says, be just.
Brother, 1 second.
just-
Muslim bus driver, Muslim cabbie,
I agree with you on all that.
why do you link
Yeah,
Islam
but
and
the
Muslim?
propaganda's there. It's evident.
Brother,
Sorry, bro.
just 1 second.
No, please
The
don't
moment that you link Islam and Muslims in your media propaganda, I will use this word now because that's how it is. 1 second.
Yeah, just don't,
It
just
is
don't take
because-
this away from where it is, because my family's Iranian, brother. Like,
Look, brother.
I've got no issue with
I want
Islam
to
at all.
highlight this point. When you have a problem in Tower Hamlets, right? In Tower Hamlets, there are boys who are doing a lot of gangster type things. They're into drugs. Maybe they're into, sexual relationship outside marriage because they're not even married. These things, obviously, Islam prohibits and forbids altogether. So you cannot then say it's Islamic problem. No, it's not. Because Islam, if that is what they're following, excuse me, if they were following Islam, they wouldn't be doing drugs. They wouldn't be sleeping around in the first place.
I'm a
That
Christian
means,
Orthodox. I married an English Catholic.
excuse me, I'm just trying to balance your statement. So it is not an Islamic problem. It is not a Muslim problem. It's a youth problem in Tower Hamlets. Then I will say, I'm with you. What can we do for that? Oh, they're also from Muslim family. Okay, then the Muslim families needs to be worked on. Why did you let your boys and girls into drugs? Because you are not being very good parents. Because there is in Islam, or even in an Asian family, or even here, as a parent, you have the responsibility for your children and their well-being. So if they're going to drugs, why? Because it's a failure from parents, failure from the school, failure from the cultural environment. That's the problem. Don't make it into an Islamic one. Don't make it into a Muslim problem. Okay? That will be my issue. So Islam, yes, Islam provides solutions to these problems by saying what? Prevention is better than cure. If you stop, look, prevention is better than cure. If you did not have all these opiums and drugs available, and you make it available because it's a good business, then people won't be going into drug and drug consumption, would they? Imagine this, no drugs.
I just want to ask one question about that, the drugs issue, because I'm fascinated by it. And it's this. Do you understand why there are drugs?
Which drugs?
Any drugs. Heroin, cocaine, whatever you like. Do you understand?
We are...
Just ask my question.
I am.
Do you understand
Brother,
why?
I'm a pharmacist.
Do you understand why they're there?
To answer your question,
Yeah.
drugs in a layman terms is understood to be illicit drugs. I'm not talking about drugs which are used in medicine, whether in veterinary medicine or in normal medicine.
I want to, the question I've always asked myself is why are there so many, let's call them illegal drugs to round it all up? And the simple answer is there's a demand. There's a demand. I would promise you that if somebody came up with some sort of solution that wipes every illicit drug off the face of the planet tonight, by the 24 hours time, somebody would be making it out of something else.
Yeah, I want that man dead as well.
It's an innate condition.
It's not innate condition.
It is. It is. Why would it have ever... Imagine, you're out in the jungle and there's a piece of rotting fruit and you pick it up, you slug it down and it tastes absolutely disgusting. Anybody that's drunk whiskey would vouch for that. And yet, we come back for more. Not you, not you, not you, but an awful lot of us do.
Okay, let me tell you.
So
since you asked me the question, let me tell you my point. Many of these illicit drugs actually were used in medicinal purposes.
Okay,
but when people realize you get a high from this, that's why they started getting abused.
Yes.
Now, which people are using or abusing them?
Everybody is. Not everybody, I'm generalising.
People,
but there's an awful lot more. There's a lot of people here who won't put their hands up and go, oh, it was me.
The reason why they're abused, there are people out there, they have taken their own desires as their God. Because they want to be happy for whatever it takes. It doesn't matter if it means to steal, if it means to kill.
There is not a society in this world that does not have some sort of illegal stimulant.
If you allow me to answer your question. So the people who do this, they're trying to make themselves happy, whatever it takes. Now, these people who want to do that, of course, they have misunderstood the whole thing of self-restraint, self-control, and being responsible. Being responsible means that even if it's your... Imagine now.
I take drugs, I'm responsible.
If you look, imagine a man...
Anybody else take drugs?
Excuse me.
Anybody honest enough to own up to taking drugs?
Do you want me to continue answering your question?
He's smiling, he takes them.
Right.
Right.
Imagine a man sees a beautiful woman, right?
Yep.
Now, the man has some feeling to go and rape this woman. Should this man go and fulfill his need?
Which man are we talking about?
I'm asking a hypothetical question.
Let me just put this to you.
No. I want you to reflect on that. If you find a man who feels that, oh, I want this woman, I want this girl.
Yes.
And he chases her and finds her in a corner and rapes her because he thinks he's going to get away with it. Now, should he not have prevented his feeling, restrained his feeling?
Perhaps he can't.
Perhaps he can't. Then basically, so now here's the problem.
It's like somebody who takes drugs. Now, I don't know whether there are any drug smokers or takers here, but here's a fact, that I can take a drug and then I can leave it. he might take it and maybe he can't. Now, maybe that's something physical in us.
Physical in us?
Yeah, physical in us.
Okay, so someone...
So there's an innate desire amongst mankind.
Who says there was no desire? I am saying when there is a desire,
Because
are you
if there
suggesting...
wasn't, it wouldn't be here.
You know...
We wouldn't have
you
drug
know-
dealers, we would not have
you know,
drugs
engaging-
if people didn't want them.
my
There's
friend,
a demand.
my friend, when people have desires
Yes.
to rape another woman, should this desire
Oh, hang on
be
a minute.
curbed?
Whoa. You know,
Or are you saying there are some people out there, we can't blame them because they cannot
how
control
many
themselves?
men here want to go along
No,
and rape
answer that
anybody?
question, please.
How many men? Oh, he
Excuse me,
wants to rape?
answer the question. Are you saying those people who feel they cannot control themselves and they go and rape women, it's part of their natural makeup, we can't do anything, they shouldn't be...
I don't know what their motivation is
Not
what
about
I'm saying.
motive. You just said it's something, it's in the makeup, natural makeup, they cannot control.
I did not say that.
That's what you just said. You just did.
there's no
Would you like to explain that to a woman?
There's
Go
no
ahead.
issue when a woman got into a corner and you
Are we
rape her.
talking drugs or rape now?
Desires.
Which one are we talking?
Desires. We say, look, in Islam, Islam considers human beings have desires because God created human beings with desires. But the difference is Islam gave a boundary to live by while having those desires.
So no,
And Islam gave the means and the resources to fulfill those desires within the boundary.
right?
It is easy to do, is it practical to do? And also legislated laws and regulations for those who go beyond the boundary, so that society is protected, society is safe and secure. You are simply saying
It isn't.
No.
Those laws aren't working, are they?
the laws work.
Because those people wouldn't be committing those
Let
crimes.
me give you an example from Islamic society when it worked. Today, it's not working because, unfortunately, I cannot show you an Islamic society today because most of them were ex-colonial countries by Britain, France, or many others.
So it's somebody else's fault.
Excuse me. I'm not saying it's someone else's fault. I am saying in countries that where Muslims are living, previously they have been colonized already. What do the colonialists do? The colonialists, when they go there, they don't just go there and say, I know, nice meeting you and bye-bye. They implement their system, their culture, their laws and their regulations. So whether you've been very, you've been very, what's it called, minimalist in understanding. I am saying it's a multifactorial reasons why there's a problem. And part of the problem that we've inherited in our Muslim land is colonialism. When the colonial masters left, they left with an education system that was bankrupt and totally unsuitable for an Islamic society. When they left with a social system in which there was still the problem. So
Excellent. I'm just going to ask a simple question.
So
before they arrived,
why
what
don't
was
you,
happening before they arrived?
Right, before they arrived. So let's go back when Islam was implemented. How many cases of rape, stealing, highway robbery? How many cases?
How are we going to know?
By looking at historical reports.
How far back do you go then?
Go back when Islam implemented the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From there, look at few hundred years after that. Look at blocks of centuries. When Islam was implemented, do you know, my friend? Do you know? Just to give an
I just
example.
have another question I want
Before
to
you,
clarify.
no, I want you to engage rather than think ahead with the question. When Islam was implemented in some Muslim countries, at that time there were no security cameras, CCTV cameras. There weren't any. There weren't these electrical shutters. What there were, people were shops open, like in a table or something, and they were during the time of Salah prayer, like 5 times a prayer, midday, around, afternoon time and so on, right? Daytime. I want to go at night time. When they heard the call of prayer, they would just simply lay a cloth over the table, merchandise, leave their shops, doesn't matter how expensive it is, and then go to the mosque and pray and come back. Now, how was it possible? Do you think it's possible in this country to do that today?
That isn't my question.
No, I want you to think on this. How in an Islamic society at one point it was possible.
And now?
Wait.
In what
I
Islamic
want you
society
to.
now
I want you
is
to
it possible?
compare and reflect. Why was it possible then, and
No,
why
you're
is it
telling me
impossible
was
now?
Possible then. You have no evidence. That it
Oh, we
was
have
then.
historical
No,
reports.
you don't. I'm sorry.
I've been to
So-
Mecca and Medina,
I'm
and
sorry.
I'm still there today.
outside on the street where you're from, and think on this as a simple example. That's all I'm asking. Is that you have your Islam, and I have my Christianity, let's say, and we're going back to the dawn of time, right? And we meet, and you and I are very affable. We understand each other, and you tell me that you follow Islam, and I tell you I follow God or whatever. And we go back to our communities. We're quite happy. We get on with each other. We go back. You go back, and I tell my people, guess what? I've seen this really lovely guy. He believes in Islam. I don't quite know what it is, and you go back. And you say, oh, I've met some guys and they, I don't know, they follow some sort of God. If we had tolerance at that point, none of this would have got any further. But somebody, not you, not me, somebody in our tribe, who think we're going right back to the very dawn of time, somebody in my tribe goes, those bastards, they should believe what we believe. Now, that is an innate situation. This is not learned. You can't learn it if it was never there. You know, people say, oh, racism is learned. Well, who was the first guy who started it?
Okay.
And
So
where did he get it from?
So let
if
me
he never
let me
learned it?
address what you just said. I would like you to listen carefully
I'm
to
listening
the
carefully.
response,
I'm
right?
listening
Thank you.
carefully.
As you always are. So you said, like, but go back in the old times, the dawn of time, when Muslims and Christians were living together, you know, and only there will be some guys who think otherwise. But if you were to consider Islam,
Yes.
the teaching of Islam,
Yeah.
you would have realized what you so much want and desire is what is the teaching of Islam in the first place.
But didn't Islam split?
You are already interrupting without listening.
But didn't Islam split?
You see, you're already interrupting without listening. I've just started to explain to you the phenomenon of Islam. Islamic teaching is that if you don't want to become a Muslim, you can remain what you are and practice in your own sphere.
Yeah.
That is why in Syria, not today, back in old time, or in Lebanon, or in Egypt, I'll give you some examples, right? Where Muslims and Christians were living side by side,
Absolutely.
practicing their religion side by side. So Islam had no issues with other people. Islam had no issues with tolerating each other.
But they
Islam
did.
is no, they did not. The problem starts in your denial
No, your
of
denial.
history and historical reality.
Exactly.
Now tell me, in Egypt,
Yes.
why do we still find in Egypt hundreds and thousands of Christians still living today with the Muslims, with their ancestral line going back all the way to the dawn of time of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, if there was no tolerance shown to them?
But somewhere, well, you can stay with wherever you like.
Stick with you in Egypt.
Somewhere.
Thank you.
Somewhere there was intolerance.
When?
There had to
When?
be.
When?
Well, wherever.
No,
Well,
don't say whenever.
Why,
When?
Why did the Islamic religion split into different?
You're not answering the question.
Well, there's
Even if
Islam
Islam splits into Sunnah,
if the Sufi and the Sunni were tolerant of each other,
not
why
Sunni.
do they kick the Shia?
okay, brother,
You
one
don't,
moment.
but not you personally, but some do, don't they?
Again, in Egypt in particular, whether you're Sunni or a Sufi or a Shia, the fact remains in history that Christians and the Jewish people, at one point, they were living side by side. Why? How did they do that if they were intolerance?
Well, where is the intolerance sprung from?
You see, you're very difficult to engage
asking the
with.
question.
I asked you, you claim,
Are we tolerant now? Are we tolerant now?
Look, the discussion is
Are
not
we tolerant now
my
of
friend,
each other?
my friend.
Are we tolerant?
If you are listening carefully,
Yes.
you would have noticed that Muslims have inherited non-Islam within their societies. So they are not being judged and ruled by, governed by the Islamic principles in totality. That is why there is intolerance even in our Muslim societies today. So Today we have our problem. I am saying when Islam was implemented in its entirety, hear my words carefully.
Yes.
Why was it that they were tolerant?
They weren't.
In which
we
period?
wouldn't be here
In
today
which-
having
hang on.
this discussion.
In which period
if
they were
tolerant-
intolerant?
It doesn't matter which period you start. It had to have started somewhere. You can't
You know
say.
what? I'll tell you when it
sorry,
started.
you can't say, oh look, in 1950 everything was fine. In 1951 it wasn't.
Okay.
Right? Because
may
something.
I suggest one thing or ask one thing?
Yeah, go on.
Have you read any of the histories of civilization in Egypt and Syria, Islamic civilization in Spain?
Yes.
Right. Tell me about
In
Islamic
fact,
tolerance between.
let's skip with Egypt.
Tell me about.
No, you started
no,
with Egypt.
Tell
It's
me
been-
about.
Tell me about
intolerance
Egypt. Were there
between
slaves? Were there
Muslims.
slaves in Egypt?
Am I talking about bananas?
No, are you talking
Good.
about?
I'm talking about Muslims and Christians
Yeah,
in particular.
exactly.
In Egypt.
In Egypt.
In Egypt, at what period there were intolerance?
Were there slaves in this? In this?
I am
society?
talking about-
Were there slaves?
People, Muslims and Christians, whether it was a Muslim slave or a Christian slave, this is not a distinction. Faith as a distinction. When, are you listening? When you identify yourself.
How can you tell me that any society that enslaves another society?
You're moving
It's
your
been-
goalpost
I'm
from
not moving
one
my
to the other.
goalpost.
Now we're talking about slavery.
No, we're
Listen.
not talking about slavery. We're still talking about tolerance.
We're talking about
We're
tolerance
still
between
talking
other
about
faiths.
tolerance.
Other faiths.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Within the Muslim faith,
Slaves, right? Good,
let's
slaves.
assume.
Now, in which period Muslims were intolerant to Christian slaves?
Doesn't matter which period. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Have a good day.
There just isn't any tolerance in the world.